how's everyone doing today? Hopefully things are going well. I had a major emergency. I ran out of tea, and so now I'm on my emergency backup tea, which is unfortunately not the same kind and not quite as good, but will have to sustain me. I do have my Hofbrauhaus mug though for my tea, which is nice. So, for those who don't know, what we're going to do today is we're going to take some unstructured news reports of breaches and we're going to turn them into structured data. We do that to put it in the various community database, which is an online database of publicly disclosed breaches in a structured format that we use in the day job, and that's also available for academics or anyone else really who wants to do some data analysis to use to do some research. And so the way we do that is we start with the VCDB repository where the data is stored, and then the news reports are stored as issues. And we'll go there, and I should have a couple assigned to me. We have several thousand. We've closed 6,000. We have 7,000 more to go. I don't think we're going to get done this year. But I am doing pretty good on my list. I've got one that is assigned to me, and then we'll go do a couple that are assigned to other people. So let's see what this one is. Oh, and I think we did this one last week. So let's go check to figure that out. It says Bahari leaks. So we'll give that a search. I am terrible about not closing the ones assigned to me. Yeah, here it is, validated C35D. So we'll close this one. And then go back to my issues. And I think the only thing left is a schema change we were considering. It's assigned to me. Actually, it's probably done. I need to make sure that this is probably actually completed. And so we also keep changes to the schema in this, but mostly when we're changing the schema, we look in the Varus repo. So that would be something like this. And the issues here tend to be schema issues or coding style things, notes about how to code various reports, some misspellings. But where we want to go and put in maybe another enumeration because the enumerations aren't clear, or change a definition or something, we tag that. So for now, we're going to do VCDB. And since it looks like I am full on my list of VCDB issues, I think I am going to go and maybe help out Alex a bit. So we'll see what Alex has assigned to him. So let's remove me and add Alex. Alex has a lot more than I do assigned, apparently. So I suppose we will start at the top. Virginia Gay Hospital data breach impacts 5,000. Let's see, 5,000 initiates security changes, upgrades. Okay, let's go and look at that. Pull up the references. See what we have here and what actually happened and how much we can code it. So how much? Oh, yeah, I am not willing to sign in for details like this. Virginia Gay Hospital notified their patients about the data security incident. Where the data security incident, which may have led to the disclosure of personal information of the patients, the incident was immediately investigated by the hospital. Letters were sent out to affected patients to alert and notify them about the phishing attack. Notify them about the phishing attack. So we've got what action happened. And more than likely what that means is that someone received a phishing email and the attacker got access to a mailbox. be my guess. Say June 18th, one of the employees fell prey to a phishing attack. The hospital has determined that an unknown third party had access to some of the protected health information of certain patients contained in the employee's email account. And so what we know then is that it was in a phishing that had a link to a site where they put in their credentials. They would have said something if they had been malware, and it wouldn't have just been access to the email, it would have been access to the entire system. The hospital has engaged a forensic firm in order to investigate, yada yada yada, blah blah blah, da, da, da. Stored in the compromised email account included patient names, security numbers, date of birth, medical information. Although the Virginia hospital has not found evidence that it was will suggest the patient information had been accessed, copied, or misused by the intruder, they want to provide the notice of the data security incident along with the information related. 5,030 individuals. Okay. Yeah, there's more than enough here to code this. So we'll start at the top with my name. That's it, and then it's an incident. This is an incident, and when did it happen? Let's make sure that I'm gonna get rid of that. That's useless. 19, so 2020, the GitHub ID, and then we'll put both references in, even though the first one really isn't particularly helpful, just because we may use them to match later on when we are trying, if we have to deduplicate records, because another way that we get records, and a lot of organizations get records of breaches, is through FOIA requests. FOIA requests can turn up the same things that you find out publicly, because a lot of times they have to report to the government and they have to publicly disclose. And so in those cases, a lot of times it helps to try to deduplicate, and links to news articles can help with that. Summary, phishing email, stole email creds, and potentially, and that's important, breached potentially breached medical information. So PHI. Okay, confidence medium, because we're gonna have to make some intuitive guesses here. Not huge ones, or not leaps of faith in any case, but see, compromise. On average, these take hours. We have a lot of data on how quickly people click, and it's normally in the terms of hours, and almost all clicking happens. It's about, let's see, so it's, I think, about 1/3 in the first hour, 2/3 in the first day, basically all of it in the first week. It's people kind of come online and come into work, that kind of thing. So exfiltration, we don't actually know that exfiltration happened. The hospital's been pretty cagey about that. Discovery, they don't really say, but this article was written, no. It's always frustrating when they don't put the date on the article. Did they have a date on this article? So after I went all this trouble to close it, August 30th. So June, July, August. The breach was announced August 16th. So that lets us fill in notification, at least. They kind of knew whether it's discovered. I can't contain. See, this is just written off of the same thing. So we really don't know. It couldn't have been more. We don't know whether it's days or weeks or months to discover, fortunately. And we don't know about containment. Though if they took until August to disclose it, happened in June, so 2 months. Well, they probably changed the credentials pretty quickly. We just don't know. Okay. And in general, these kinds of public breaches, it's very common to not have a lot of the timeline data. We're more likely to get timeline data from more detailed breaches from other partners. So let's close this down and we can do the victim section. This is where we do have a lot of information. So this was Virginia Gay Hospital. Let's go find out a little bit about Virginia Gay Hospital. Let's see. It's the hospital, like, I get it. Some contact information. There's a Facebook page. You know, I don't know. Facebook. No, I am not logging into Facebook. That's not why we're here. Okay. This is why we don't use Facebook. Okay. Let's see if there's anything here. So there's 43 employees are on LinkedIn, but the reality is there's no way that is realistic for a hospital. Every individual position that has to be staffed 24/7 requires 5 employees. And so if you assume that they have, probably double coverage on every floor and at least a couple of different floors, there's no way that is an extremely low number. We'll give them between 100 and 1,000, which falls in line with what LinkedIn is estimating. And then hospitals are going to be in healthcare down at 62. Specialty, just hospitals, general medical and surgical hospitals, 622-110. Pretty common one in the report. Patients affected, 1. Now, where is Virginia Gay Hospital located? Let's see. Did we say? If we put it. Okay. So fill in the region. United States. That may be what we need for victims. Then the action, and really all we know about was a social. Well, yeah, social attack. Phishing, vector, that's email. This was used to infiltrate, and well, we don't know. I guess so that was used to steal the credentials, and then we know that exfiltration happened. It was using an email web app, and we know it was a web app because if it had been a desktop, the attacker would have just downloaded the entire mailbox, and they would have known that the attacker had taken data. This will be use of stolen credentials. So, because we would assume the credentials were stolen and the attacker had access to the mailbox, otherwise they wouldn't have indicated that it had been breached. Target, just regular employee, as far as we know. And that should fill out that. And then the actor was an external actor and someone organized because they had a cloned, probably a cloned web app of some type to steal credentials. Motive, normally in these cases it's financial, but without a little more information about who, about what they took or if they took anything, it would be hard to say. Unknown region, we don't know. The asset was, we had 2 assets here. We had a person, unknown person and user. And then we had a mail server, really the web app. Web app. So 2 assets, 2, 1 person. Oh, that's not a 1. 1 person, web app. We don't really know their location. And the attributes, the integrity of the person was compromised because the phishing email altered their behavior to put their credentials in somewhere they shouldn't. And then data was potentially disclosed, not absolutely disclosed. The amount of data was, I think, 5,030, something like that. And 30 people. Well, we're going to put 5,031 because there was 5,030, say, potential medical records and 1 credential. There we go. Both employee and customer data were lost here. It was stored on the mail server. We only used transmitted if it was like stolen in transit while being transmitted between 2 places. It's unknown if data was abused. And so that gets us our attributes. Targeted, probably opportunistic. There's no reason to believe that they were targeted anyway. Discovery method, they really don't say. I think they said they became aware or something, which is not helpful. The Virginia Hospital has discovered that one of, so they really don't say anything. Unknown. And then value chain. So development, there was development of a website that stole the data. Non-development services. We really don't know if they used any of these. Targeting, they would have needed to know email address to target the malware. Distribution, they would have needed a method for distributing the email. And we don't know anything about cash out and money laundering because we don't know what if anything was taken, right? So impact, insignificant. They sent an email to everyone and that was about it. This was a PHIDBR assignment. It was assigned because of the healthcare angle on it, and so it was prioritized. The action chain was a social action by an external actor on a person asset law that's led to a compromise of integrity. And really a compromise of confidentiality as well. But we can't put 2 here, so we will add the integrity breach, which first happened, and then the compromise of it, confidentiality. And then based off of that, a hacking action, so the use of the credentials, say plus loss of confidentiality of credentials by the external actor on a server led to the compromise of the email. Then we can mark that validated and save it out. And I'm sure if you've watched the stream before, I do this a lot. I'm going to, I need a Sublime text window. I'm going to save this out onto a text file. We try to do a lot in this web app to make sure that you don't lose data if it crashes or if something happens, but there's always the chance that something will happen. It is a web app, it's not perfect. And so sometimes it helps to have an extra record. It's very helpful if you're coding like, 30 or incidents and you haven't saved off in a while. It's really depressing when that happens and something happens and you lose, hours and hours of work. So with that, We'll close that. We got one down. We can go close that for Alex and go on to the next one. So what's next? Navicent health alerts. Oh, here are ransomware. Yay, we never see ransomware. Okay, so open up the records. PerkSoft, a Wisconsin-based company that manages remote data backup service relied upon by hundreds of dental offices across the country, is struggling to restore access to client systems after falling victim to a ransomware attack. So what actually happened here? They're a cloud management provider for digital dental records, DDR. That's not my first go-to for the acronym DDR, which operates an online backup service called DDS Safe. It archives medical records. It's an ironic place to have the ransomware hit. The ransomware attack hit PerkSoft the morning of March, so we know when it happened. Encrypted dental records for some, but not all the practices that rely on them. Did not respond to requests for comment. Director said the ransomware encrypted files approximately 400 practices, and they restored about a quarter of them. Sadly, she said she did not. When did they answer this? It happened on the 26th, and this article was written in August, or happened on August 26th. It's written on August 29th. What? Oh yeah. It was written on August 29th, so a couple of days. So it's not really that long. I guess, you know, when you get ransomware, you kind of have to say something. This looks like another image shared by members of a Facebook group indicates a ransomware. This is extremely advanced. It's extremely advanced. Fairly recent strain. Hey, but we have the name in it, so we can actually put that in. That's nice. Basically, what we're saying is that I'll lose money in a mistake and got it. Definitely play. According next year, if my renewal is due, wish I didn't prepay for the year. No, we are paying the something. Blah blah blah. We are paying the ransom. Okay. So now reporting that they paid the ransom. Okay. However, some affected dental offices report the decryptor did not work to unlock at least some of the files encrypted by the ransomware. Prime target criminals. Okay. This seems to be a different breach. Data read. Another breach. So yes, there are other breaches that happen. It's nice to see people still first post on sites. Yeah. Okay. Company paid ransom demand. The two companies opted to pay. The digital trials are, in this case, the software. So this happened at 2. So is this one incident or 2? Gains access to dental software backend, deploys ransomware on customer systems. Okay. Software providers are the Digital Dental Record and PerkSoft, 2 Wisconsin, who collaborate on DD. Oh, okay. So one breach, but 2 victims. So we are going to have to add both victims in there because it really is kind of the 2 victims. And then, gosh, but they're not secondary victims. Well, but I mean, yeah. Okay, so this is going to be kind of an interesting one to code, but we'll get it done. This was August of this year. Confirmed. What's our GitHub number? 13994. We have a couple of references we want to put in. The one from Krebs. One from ZDNet. Yep. And finally, this one, which I'm not. This is a video. I'm not watching that. Okay. We'll put it in there anyway. Okay, so what happened? We really don't know the actions that caused the ransomware to get in, do we? Hackers placed somewhere. Well, attackers attacked backup, cloud backup vendor. Used ransomware to encrypt products or encrypt client data, customer data. Vendor paid ransom. At some point, they're just going to pass a law that makes it illegal to pay ransoms to ransomware. Yeah, because it happens all the time. So we know when this happened. It was August 26th, I think we said. Up here, August 26th, 2019. 26. Almost at time. Compromise. We really don't know how long it took. I didn't mean to close the entire timeline. For compromise, exfiltration doesn't apply because ransomware doesn't exfiltrate data. Discovery happened within minutes. I think it seems like they discovered it pretty quick. It'd be an interesting thing to study, or to study ransomware in places where paying the ransom is common, even if whether it's legal or not. Yeah, so like by the way, you can tell like this is the content, the web app, and the website. This is chat over here, and then the camera is right in the middle. And so, yeah, I think it would be interesting. I'll bet there's actually research on it. It'd be interesting to look through the academic literature to see what academic literature exists on both paying ransoms for human hostages as well as paying ransoms in ransomware cases. Because this is the kind of thing that I wouldn't be surprised if academics have studied it. And this is really something in general. Is there's a really bad yeah, actually, that's probably a good source. Maybe not U.S. based insurance, but international insurance probably does have some really interesting data on that. And we get cyber insurance data from several companies, and so there's probably some opportunity we should reach out to them and ask about it, because it would be kind of interesting to look into that and see how it. Well, and that's a good question. Is what's the research question that we're trying to answer? Does paying ransoms increase, increase crime, so to speak? Is that the research question, the hypothesis that we were trying to answer? All right. Well, so chat, like, what would be a better way potentially to state that, rather than like how would we state the hypothesis? Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because it's not like conceptually we can feel that, hey, there should be some link here that we should be able to gain knowledge from. But practically we have to be able to come up with an actual hypothesis to test. And it has to be one that's kind of clear and useful. We wouldn't otherwise, you're just kind of like, here's data, there's places with ransoms pay ransoms, and that doesn't necessarily become actionable. And that's a good question is it, would it be actionable even? What industries are better for a payoff? So actually, I think that we don't even need that side of it, because I think so one of the hypotheses that I kind of work on from a DBIR perspective is the idea that see. It is the idea that attackers will target the places that are most advantageous. So if we are seeing ransomware as a greater percentage of something like um, healthcare, or as a greater percentage of like public sector, then that kind of implies that those sections are, those industries are more susceptible. And we see this in practicality as well. There's kind of the perception, I think, that like in medical organizations have an immediate need, they have immediate requirements for their data. And they also don't have a large security budget the way that somewhere like a financial institution would. And so because of that, there's more interest in targeting the organizations that need their data immediately and are perceived to not have the budget to defend it. That would be an interesting one, Sean. What price point does ransom payoff outweigh perceived threat? And that would be a very complicated one, because then you're having to test. That would take like actual kind of an academic study, because you'd have to go out and figure out what the perceived threat of government legal action is. And is that perceived threat of government legal action to the attacker? Like, you know, the attacker is worried about being paid, or is that the company that is paying the ransom, it's cheaper for them just to pay the ransom? You know, it would be really interesting to kind of come up with, I think, kind of a, gosh, oh man, I just had a good thought there and it just flittered by. So like, not necessarily what the value is to the attacker, because ultimately it's almost all, the externalities. It would be nice to quantify, that would be a really interesting one, is quantifying the externalities associated with paying a ransom. Right? Because when you pay a ransom, notionally it's probably going to be cheaper than if you had not paid the ransom. Like, it would be cheaper to pay the ransom than to, you know, pay an IR firm, which you really have to do anyway, because you have to get the attackers out because they had a way to drop malware. But also to pay for all the additional security, to pay to try to get your data up. Now you have to install backup systems that maybe you didn't before. Loss of customer revenue, those kinds of things. You know, it probably is cheaper in general to pay the ransom, but a large cost of the ransom comes as externalities, because it finances additional criminal activity. It also increases perceived value of criminal activity, and so it probably increases the cost to other organizations. And so it'd be interesting to quantify the externalities associated with ransomware, I think. Oh well. All right, we need to get back to this. We're way off topic. We're halfway in, and I've only coded. Yeah, I know. I really should set my quota like 3 per stream. That way, I can spend like a quarter of the time just kind of pontificating about security research and security topics. Oh, and that was one of the things I was going to say before. Was like security. There's this huge divide between security academia and security practice. Like, there's academics who are, you know, studying security and writing academic white papers that practitioners and vendors never look at, never consider. On the other side, you know, academics rarely peek in on the vendor or practitioner side of security to see, you know, how does their research really apply to what's needed and such. And so, you know, it's a good thing to try to cross that divide, reach out to your local, find, you know, the local academics who are doing security research, you know, at the local school, hear about what they're researching, give academics an opportunity to kind of talk about their research at conferences and things like that, so that we have the opportunity to say, hey, what you're doing is helpful and I see how we could apply it. Or, hey, this is what we need to know more about. Or, hey, like what you're doing is great, but, there's some limitations that you may not be aware of on the practical side, things like that. Yeah. I love Weiss. For the academic context, I normally only get to read the papers. I was hoping to go this year, and I just didn't get everything arranged, unfortunately. But Weiss is one of my targets of interest from a conference standpoint. So, okay, back on topic. Timeline. I think did we finish timeline? Well, we got when it happened, compromise, we did not answer. So really, because we don't know a lot about what happened, I mark that unknown. Exfiltration, does it clear the unknown? No, it doesn't. Discovery, we got containment was days, because they discovered on the 26th. I think by the 28th or by the 27th, they decided to pay the ransom, and it probably took them a little bit more time. So we'll say that it was all kind of wrapped up in days. Notification happened, it looks like the day of. So August 26th, because they were discussing what to do about it on morning of the 27th. The victim. So we're going to put Perksoft, I think, as the main victim. So add them up here. They're a U.S. Wisconsin-based organization. I need to make this note a little clearer to use this nomenclature. So United States. And I'm going to say that they are going to be an information company. Their job, they work on medical data, but they don't provide medical services. They provide data warehousing services. We found that data processing, hosting, and related services. We found that really good one here. And then we can look in here to see, this is all facilities practitioners, labs, care services, hospitals, facilities. This is nothing really about the data. Child care services. Okay, I didn't realize that fell under. Okay. You don't see a lot of compromises of child care services because, I don't know. Nursing facilities, special. Okay, so I'm happy with this industry. Looks like one location affected, and then we have to figure out how many employees this company has. Okay. KNet soft. Come over here and we'll do the standard thing to Google them. And there's not a lot of information. That is not surprising. They're going to be a small company, right? They're just a little software shop building one thing. The question is, do they have under 10 employees or do they have 10 to 100? They're not even big enough to be listed here. Pay for... I'm going to say that they have more than 10 employees. I think that they probably got 10 to 100. Just judging by how many are on this list and the general ratio. Okay, secondary victim. We're going to put one secondary victim. Well, yeah, we'll put one secondary victim. The question is, a lot of times if we try to capture the relationship between victims, and so in this case we had two companies that collaborated on the piece of software that was compromised, but then there were a whole bunch of other companies who were then compromised indirectly, the actual dentist office. And so are they secondary victims? In this case, I'm going to say no. A lot of times we do like to code them as secondary victims, but there's a couple reasons not to do it in this case. The first is when we do code them as secondary victims, normally the reason we're doing it is because the attacker broke into something like a first company, say a payment processor, and then turned around and used the access to the payment processor to compromise the cash registers of all the customers. And so there was kind of a second step through the company. And so in this case, the DDS software was compromised directly. There wasn't a requirement to go to each company by way of the DDS software and attack them. The second reason is we don't really have any count whatsoever. Like they say dentist office, but there's no record of the number, which is understandable. It would disclose the number of customers these two companies had. And third, because I want to capture this other actual company who is very clearly involved as a victim. We're going to capture it this way. And we can make a note here. Guys could potentially be considered secondary victims, but because we don't know the number and the attack was directly on the DDS safe software and not the offices individually leaving them off. And that's what we use the notes for. You'll notice that we rarely type them in, but if we have a case where it's kind of a questionable reason or the kind of rot enumeration doesn't capture the real story, the full story, it's helpful to put in notes, just in case we ever have to look back at why it was the way it was. And this is a good balance between having very structured data that doesn't capture a lot of details, which is good for anonymization aggregation, and being able to kind of figure out what you meant by what you did later on. So that consists by victim, then actions, and there's going to be an unknown action to infiltrate. But we know that that led to malware, ransomware, and it's really unknown how it was the vector. So we really don't, this wasn't elevate or exfiltrate or anything like that. But we do know the ransomware names, right? It's ranked as one of the most active and widespread ransomware strains, which is fourth. Completely different, by the way, from the other article where they said that this was a new and where was it? See, it was like come on, they put the name of the ransomware in here. Fairly recent strain, right? Extremely advanced and fairly recent strain. How Perksoft described it. And then over here, it was published as widespread. So that gives you an idea of how fervently to trust those kinds of things. Yeah, feel like that. And there was a citation. There's actually a citation on this one, right? Like, a citation needed. This article actually cited a report on how prevalent it was, where the company specifically said, their claims much less cited. So, okay. Got the malware. That's the action. Actors are clearly organized for financial purposes. I don't want to go Googling malware to find out. Is this a link to Krebs' thing? Maybe this will tell us a little bit about where it comes from. The criminal behind the Grand Crab malware. Close up, but a group video shows the Grand Crab team has instead quietly well deserved the Grand Crab's administrators wrote. I don't know. He keeps describing him as Grand Crab team. Why not? Okay. Do we know a state? Unknown says standard ransomware on any computers in the Commonwealth of Independent States. So they are a Eastern European or Northern Asia. What is? Oh, I got to figure out. Russia has to be North Asia, right? Like, or the CIS. So we don't know Russia at all. But notionally, if the ransomware avoids this area, Commonwealth of Independent States, Armenia, Belarus, Russia, Moldova, then I guess we can assume that that's probably where the malware came from, and that's probably Eastern Europe includes Northern Asia. Okay, let's use Eastern Europe. 150151. Okay. So we actually have a little bit of information here. We don't know the country though. Unknown. Asset. We really don't know the total assets, so I don't want to figure it in. We know that web application. We don't even know that the web application. We know that the underlying data store was compromised. So I'm going to put service unknown because, or I'm going to put service file service because we know that the files were compromised, but it could have been something like a cloud storage system. It could have been through the web app. This is really all we know from a asset standpoint. We would assume these guys are built on kind of some kind of cloud service, but it doesn't talk about it. And so what was compromised? What we know was compromised was the availability. And obfuscation is what we use for ransomware, at least days. We don't have the unknown, so we could skip unknown attributes, so we can skip that. Targeted, probably not. Well, you know, I kind of get the feeling that this was more targeted. Well, gosh, do we know? No, I don't think we know. It feels like, so from a ransomware perspective, it could be that someone said, hey, let's go target this data source. This is a likely one to pay. You know, dental data stored in cloud, multiple organizations together. You know, or it could be that they just kind of got swept up. They had an open cloud storage or, you know, credentials or something. Discovery, this is disclosed by actor because ransomware doesn't work unless you know that you have it. Value chain. So this is a lot of interesting stuff here, right? There was the payload, which is the ransomware. Distribution services, we're not really sure how it was distributed. Targeting, we don't really know. Or non-distribution services. I always confuse these two. I need to switch their order because I always think about distribution first. Proxy, marketplace, hash cracking, we don't know whether they used any of these. Distribution, we don't really know how it was distributed. Cash out will be cryptocurrency, and we don't know how to launder it. We could probably read a little bit more about the malware and figure it out, but I don't think it's worth the trouble here. You know, this is going to be painful. There were hard costs. They had to pay the ransom. But I don't know how much more than that. And I think this was a PHI DBR assignment. If we go and look. Yeah. PHI DBR. And we need to go and do the event chain too. And so I'm going to mark an unknown event at the beginning. And the reason is because this will affect how we do our post-processing at the end. And that's important. We don't want to, because when we look at event chain, if there's any unknowns, we don't count them in path length or location analysis, because one unknown action could be many unknown actions. If you don't know how they did it, you don't know whether it took them one step or many. And then the next step after that, what we do know about is malware by an external actor that compromised the server and availability of the server. Oh, and one other thing we probably want to go back and note is we probably want to make a note in the impact section that they paid the ransom. So variety, let's see. I don't know, we need other. We don't know how much it was. It seemed to be within their operating costs. They didn't change them at all. We'll make a note about that, and then we'll save that out. So we'll come over here. Save this one off as a, just for, be careful. And return. So let's try to do one more since I'm running behind. Okay. So we'll close this one. Yeah, that's exactly how we did figures 31 through 33 from the report, is we parse the event chain to get the sequence of events. And so it is very helpful to capture path data. It's not necessary, and this is one of the things. So capturing path data is one of those things that feels very hard. Like if someone said, hey, I want you to capture path data on breaches or the steps attacks took, like it would be really hard, like conceptually to start out with. And so one of the things I'm really enjoying doing as I do the streams is showing people how to capture the path data, because particularly in the structure we have, it comes out pretty easy. Granted, we're not capturing a lot of sequential data. That's something that we hope to change in the future, but it will require some major schema changes. But we are hoping to make those changes, eventually, and that it will capture much better able to capture sequential data than we are now. So, okay. I've done enough PHI DBR ones. We'll do maybe this priority one. Actually, let's do a random assignment. I keep taking all the fun ones from Alex. Privacy, ICO confirms data breach at British Bank. Oh, this one sounds great. For over 10 years, the confidential and sensitive data of over 1,600. Remember, we need that decade. That decade's timeline. Over 1,600 NatWest customers has been stored in an ex-worker's home because the bank couldn't decide how to salvage the information secure. What? For over 10 years, the confidential and sensitive data of over 1,600 National West customers has been stored in an ex-worker's home because the bank couldn't decide how to salvage the information securely. Customers were not told of the data breach by NatWest because its owner, Royal Bank of Scotland, is unaware of what the data hoard contains. Information comprised sorting codes, payment card details, just payment information, personal information. The former NatWest employee was sacked by the bank in June 2009 and has said she had been making efforts to get the data back safely to the bank since. Yeah, I don't even feel that the person who had the data was malicious. Like, it's like the bank just couldn't figure out how to send someone in a car with like a locked Pelican case or something. Bank since her role entailed selling financial products to customers and small businesses, but she was dismissed after speaking out about the security worries of working from home. they fired her talking about the security working, whereas of working from home, and they spent 10 years trying to figure out how to securely get the data because they didn't want to admit that she was right. Upon alerting the ICO about the issue, the UK regulator confirmed the data breach had taken place, owing to a security that had affected the confidentiality. The terms of GDPR, organizations must inform information without undue delay. The ICO also confirmed that RBS data breach took place under the former data protection legislation, where there was no mandatory reporting requirement. Negotiations between the former worker and the bank came to a standstill during a scheduled meeting in July. Because the chief executive understood the woman wanted to keep possession of the data set. Oh, okay. This is a weird ass one. According to the former worker who asked for anonymity in the matter, retaining a copy of the data was necessary to protect her own legal position because she intends to reveal the information to the financial... Oh, okay. She doesn't want to give the data back to illustrate how mis-selling allegedly took place. Oh. She doesn't want to get the data back because she thinks the firm was doing naughty stuff. She wasn't trying to steal it. See the dot. Understand the nature of the content. I still hope to find a way. Oh, for fuck's sake. Do I have the stream marked as like it's mature? I don't know. Oh, there's a little thing here. I can change how chat works. Show mod icons, actions, show timestamp, pause chat, emotes only, follower only chat, slow mode, clear chat, switch to non-mod view. Okay. Okay, well, let's give this a try. I honestly am not sure how this is going to turn out. This is August 19. Seems to be confirmed. Okay. This is weird. I'm not even sure how to summarize this. So, work from home employee fired for concerns about security work from home. Also, bank can't figure out how to get data back from her for 10 years. She won't delete her copy because she wants to report stuff to government. I think that's what happened. Okay, so timeline. She was fired 10 years ago, over 10 years. Bank in June 2009. Okie dokie. Okay. And then compromise. It's really not applicable. She already had the data. Filtration is not applicable. It was where it was. Discovery, not applicable. They knew it was there. Containment took years. I mean, it's at least 10 years, right? Because it's not even contained. At least 10 years. I assume that at this point they'll figure out something. Notification took place now. Let's put August of 2019. We'll put August for lack of a better term. So the victim is Nat West, right? Okay, that was bank. test. Employee count. It's a Wikipedia page, so maybe there's some hope for a... Yeah, I think she kind of qualifies as that, but I don't think that whistleblower gets coded anywhere into the schema. Of course, there's no employee count, so try it over here. 10,000. Oh, it's not a small bank. That's for sure. Employee count. 10,000 to 25,000. Seems reasonable. Bank. Where is it? No. I think that they weren't a... What kind of bank were they? National Westminster Bank is what I probably should put. A bank. Just a major retail and commercial bank. Okay. I don't like putting that in there. We'll put it in the victim notes. Locations affected, 1. UK falls under Great Britain, right? Yeah. There. West Europe, which is in here somewhere. No, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, everywhere. States. They are... Well, where does she... Does it say where she worked? Let's play... I don't think the state's particularly important in this case. No secondary victim... Actions. I don't even... So who is the actor in this case? Really, it's got to be the employee. So if the employee is the actor, this is misuse. She abused physical access to the data. Other. I think that's it. Really? Asset. It just says data, but if it's been around for like that long, this has got to be documents, like physical documents. So media, where's media documents. And we really don't know how many documents she had. Yeah. This is Great Britain again. Let's see, attribute confidentiality. This. Oh, and I guess I need to mark this. It's a normal employee. I do agree on the ideology or protest as a... No, because it's not like it doesn't say anything. So I think ideology and protest is right, but I don't think that financial or grudge are right. Like, there's no. It doesn't say anything. Well, no, I'll give you grudge because ideology or protest, but she also I think harbors an offense. I wouldn't say availability because it doesn't say anything about the bank not having the data. It just says that she has it. We don't know if the bank has a copy already. She was fired. Passed over. Let go. Copy it as this is here. Dismissed. Just gonna copy this right from the article. Oh. Okay. Attribute, data disclosure amount. It looks like 1600. Variety, bank. Data owner, customers, data 1600. Yeah. What else do we know? State of the data, I think printed. Abuse, no, it doesn't sound like she's abused in any way. Targeted, this is opportunistic. She wouldn't, this is because she had access to the data. Discovery method, I think external disclosed by actor, she told him she had it. Value chain doesn't really apply. Impact rating, insignificant. They had to disclose it. That's about it. And then this was a random assignment. And so the action was misuse by an internal actor. On media and compromise of confidentiality. And I think we can validate that one again too. There we go. So we'll give that a save. And that's our 3 for the day. Hey, Calvin. Yes, it will definitely be in there. In fact, it should be in tonight. I'm going to, so if you search for the GitHub number, I'll type it into chat here. So I'll type post.hub equals 13934. That will be the easiest way to find it. But I'm going to add these to, so every time I do a stream, right after I get off stream, I save out the JSON and I add it to the, I'll push it into the data / JSON / submitted directory in VCDB, and you'll see that here in a few minutes. And then overnight, our imports workflow will pick it up and put it in the overall data set. And so by tomorrow morning, it should be in the data set. And so it will be there for you. And so with that, since I'm already 10 minutes over because we got sidetracked a bit, I'm going to call it a day. I don't know if I'll be able to stream tomorrow. My time is looking a little slim. I was hoping to do kind of an analysis stream, but I may have to push that off to Tuesday of next week. So, but regardless, if I don't do an analysis stream this week, I'll plan to do one next week as well. Yeah, I'll be out. I think at least I may be out Thursday of next week as well. There's a conference here in town that I might go to. Anyway, I will see you all later. Thank you for coming. Have a great day.